What is good, everyone? It's Bino Beats, and 2025 was my biggest year ever as a producer. It's the first year I really started getting some bigger placements. I got my first Billboard plaque. I got over 16 million streams this year. I was in the top 2% of producers. I started really making some money from music, from placements, as well as growing my online store. And most importantly, I became a way better musician and really developed my sound. Today, I'm going to share 25 things I learned that made me a successful producer in 2025. As someone who primarily is a loop maker myself, if I had the mindset that loop makers are more talented than a drum maker, that mindset would hold me back so much. There's a reason why certain drum makers are at the top of the game. It's because they practice at it, they have super clean mixes, and they can always provide hard-hitting drums. On top of that, they've mastered a skill that a lot of loop makers don't really have to master, and that's networking. Networking directly with A&Rs, artists, to land placements. If you're someone who thinks making drums is easy, whereas loops, can take hours and hours to make, whereas you can make a beat in, like 5-10 minutes, I challenge you, try to add some hard-hitting drums to your next loop. It's way harder than you thought. I actually spent a few months this year really trying to get good at my drums. It gave me a lot more appreciation for what drum makers do, but on top of that, it also made me a better loop maker because I realized I was way overcomplicating my loops and added way too many layers. Drum makers need to have a good ear to understand which types of loops are going to get placed, and putting yourself in the mindset of a drum maker will make you a better loop maker 100%. Use ChatGPT to make the most of your time. Myself personally, I use it everything for my YouTube videos. For this video, I had it help me write the script, I had help me perfect it, give me some thumbnail ideas, give me a description for the video. You can use it for your kits, for naming ideas, kit concept ideas, marketing ideas for your kits. If I'm trying to use something like Suno to add lyrics over top of my loops, or even record my own voice, I use ChatGPT to come up with lyric ideas. Extract the most value from your music. I don't always do drums, but pretty much every time I make a loop, if there's a certain part of it that could be a cool starter, I'm putting that and using it as a starter. That way I can leverage two networks to potentially place that loop. People I send to add drums to the loop, as well as people who I collaborate on loops with, who can then flip it into something unique. That leads me to the next tip, which is something I really started practicing last year. It's save phrases. You might be thinking to yourself, I don't sell kits online. What am I going to do with these phrases? The main and primary reason you would want to save phrases is it is a workflow and productivity hack. How many times do you find yourself adding a melody to one of your loops, and then you find you're often adding very similar or the same melody in a lot of your loops, and just part of your style? This is a perfect example of something you can save as a phrase and just drag and drop so you can easily add it to your loops. Myself, I've been working on a crazy guitar kit that I'm about to drop in the next few weeks. It comes with over 600 guitar phrases. And yes, one reason I'm doing this is because I want to share my sound with you guys, but the main reason I'm doing it is actually to improve my workflow. I myself am using this kit in pretty much every loop I've done so far this year. This is something you guys can take and apply to your own melody making. That then brings me to my next tip, which kind of contradicts the previous one, is do not autopilot. A lot of what we do in producing is having the mindset of how can I make the most of my time, which is definitely a mindset you need to have. But at the same time, you don't want to do it at the expense of just making the same boring generic loop or beat every single time. I basically made a Scorey loop every single day for about 1 to 2 years. In the end, it worked out and I did get a Scorey song, but at the expense of not really developing my sound. If I was experimenting and trying new loops and melodies all the time over those 2 years, I probably would have developed my sound a lot quicker. In 2025, I really tried to expand it to new subgenres, types of artists I was making melodies for, and trying new sounds, new VSTs, new techniques, and my sound elevated way quicker. Yes, you might not be able to pump out loops as quickly if you're just making the same loop every single time, but honestly, this will lead to your loops being more effective. Diversify the music you listen to. A great way to diversify the output of your music is to change the input. What are the things that inspire you? This year, I really started to diversify my sound. I started listening to more EDM, country, punk rock, lo-fi music. And through diversifying my sound, there are so many new things that inspired me. I can't count the amount of times that I listened to a new song and it was just a breath of fresh air that inspired me to make a particular loop. You probably are not at a stage in your producing career where you can do anything exclusive. You're a loop maker and you're sending your melodies out to drum makers and they're like, I only take exclusive loops. It's because they want to have a unique sound. And so much of the sound of the beat obviously comes from the melody. Think about how much time it takes you to make a loop. I'll make it up 1 to 2 hours. If you only have the time to make 1 loop a day, it's really hard to justify saying, I'm gonna send that loop only to 1 producer. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying make sure if you are doing this, that the producer you're sending to justifies it. It really needs to be a producer that you're locking in with, you know is gonna use your loops, and provides you good opportunities in return. That being said, if you are going to do exclusive, also find a way of communicating with this producer. So for example, it's a drum maker. If they can tell you which of the loops they're using, so you know you can send out the other ones to other producers, that just helps you not put certain loops to waste that didn't get used by anyone. That leads me to the next tip, and that's maximize the number of producers that you send out to. If you're a loop maker and you're only sending your loops out to, I'll make it up, 10 to 20 people, you are definitely not sending to enough people. I'm not saying you need to develop an email list with 500 to 1,000 contacts. Chances are if it's that many, you're probably sending to too many people because people aren't going to use your loops. But in 2026, there is an abundance of super talented and really dope producers who you can be sending to. Focus on sending to people who you've started to build a personal connection with. You didn't just pull their email off their Instagram, but you've actually messaged them a little bit. And you really actually like their sound and think your loops fit. Have a workflow for sending out your music and send it out multiple times a week. In my case, as a loop maker, my goal is to send multiple times a week, somewhere around 2 to 4 times a week. And when I do, it's always the exact same process. I send to everyone on my email list using MailSuite. I then send to people on Discord, and then I take my iPhone and send to people who I have the iMessage number for. I have an exact list I follow, so I can just go through in order, and it makes it super easy workflow to send out. If I wasn't organized, this could take me, 30 minutes or longer to do, but since it's a workflow that I'm just so used to doing, it could take me anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, and I send to everyone on my list. You want to make it fast enough so that when you send loops, it's not something that you're dreading doing. Obviously, sending loops isn't fun. It's a lot more fun to actually create music and make a loop. So that's why you can't have your process for sending out be chaotic to the point where you dread it and don't do it and you're missing out on opportunities. Understand that there's hierarchy in terms of how you communicate with other producers. Best ways to do it is iMessage or Discord. If you're only using email to send out your loops, you're missing out. Yes, there are producers who check their email, will respond to and communicate that way, and use your loops and send back collabs. But the number of producers who never check their email is far greater than the number of producers that are checking their email every day. Something like iMessage, where you're getting a loop directly to your phone, the best way to send because they're getting a notification literally on their phone. And if you're sending them multiple times a week, you're going to be top of mind. The thing about email is you can blast and send out an email to, I'll make it up 500 people at once within the click of a button. iMessage and Discord, you're gonna have to personally choose the people you want to send to. So you can't do that for your entire list. But just know that the people you do send to that way, you're gonna be much more receptive to it. Have daily, weekly, and monthly routines. Personally, I don't like going into the mindset of having a specific quota, like, I'll make it up, I have to do 3 loops each day. I find it's much better just to have a routine where you create time for focused work. What I do is I carve out time every single morning to create loops and then send loops, because those are the most important things to me. That time's usually around 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. You know what? Sometimes I can make 2 loops and then I can send them out. And then there's other days where I don't even finish 1 loop and I don't send loops that day. But I'm creating the time to do what matters. And then I always have that time to then continue where I left off every day. A weekly routine is at some point in the week, I have time where I'm working on YouTube videos, where it's scripting it, filming it, or editing it. The routine is something I'm doing every day, no matter what. So I'm always making music in the morning. YouTube videos, for example, I only work on it on Thursdays and Fridays, but I have that time every single week. So then it allows me on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to not worry about that, because I know I'm going to get to it later in the week. The more of a routine you have means the less decision fatigue you have to do, and you just have time to focus on the things that really matter. Do not expect beat labs back. If you do get a lab back, that should be a pleasant surprise. But if you go into it with the mindset that every single loop you send out, you need to get a lab back or it's a failure, you're completely approaching it the wrong way. Majority of the placements I've gotten, I didn't hear what the final beat sounded like until I found out I had the placement. After going through this for a few placements and understanding how it works, I realized that majority of the times, producers are just busy, so they don't always have the time to send a lab back. So don't stress about it. Just know that the more you send out, chances are people are using your loops, and when you do get a lab back, that's just a nice bonus. Make sure you have producers that you really lock in with. Don't just treat it like a transactional relationship. Try and actually make a friendship out of them. Talk to them about life, not just about music. Ask them how their weekend was. Ask them how's it going. Try to add value when it comes to music. Don't just send them your loops. Add a little message to it. Ask them, are there particular things they're looking for right now? Do they have any references they want to work on? Stuff like that. Leverage opportunities as they come up. Whether you're a loop maker or a drum maker, it can be very easy to get into that autopilot. For example, I'm going to make Rodway beats this week, or I'm going to make Rodway beats this month because I want to make his album. But at the end of the day, it's more important to follow specific opportunities as they come up. So for example, if I'm a loop maker and a drum maker says, I need loops for this particular artist, got a direct opportunity, that's a producer you really want to lock in with, you should prioritize creating loops for that opportunity. Even if it's just one loop that you provide for that opportunity, that can go a long way. Chances are when a drum maker or artist is asking for a specific type of beat or loop, it's one of those first few loops or beats that they get that they're going to use. When it comes to those big drum makers, for example, that I want to lock in with, I want to be seen as someone who's dependable. So when they say, I need loops for this artist, I can send them to them in a really quick turnaround, and they keep coming back to me when opportunities come up. Leverage paid tools and invest in yourself. For me, Dropbox is a must. If you're a loop maker or a beat maker, it's a great way to organize and speed up your workflow for sending things out. MailSuite is key for sending out emails so you can track who's actually opening them, but also so you're not using BCC to send out. It looks really bad. For someone who sells kits, you really should have a Shopify page and also invest in ads to get people to your Shopify page. Make sure you're investing in things that actually improve your sound. For example, I invest in Suno and Arcade every single year. Build a brand. Building a brand is really just putting a face to a name. Have a consistent look to how you appear up on your online channels. The key thing really is that if somebody were to go onto your Instagram profile, within 2 to 5 seconds, they should know what type of producer you are. Is it a sample maker, a drum maker, or both? What type of placements you have, what type of artist you're looking for, just through a quick scroll. Share your music. It could literally be as simple as every single day or every few days, you pick your favorite beat or your favorite loop and you share it to your story. It's really simple as that. You don't need to create some fancy reel that took you an hour and a half to create and edit just to share a loop. I can't count the amount of times where I shared a loop and I said, who's interested in this? And I got tons of responses back from bigger producers. Quality over quantity. This one is super important and one I'm really focusing on in 2026. It goes back to what I was saying about quotas, where it's do I need to make 3 loops a day, 5 loops a day, or do I need to make 20 beats a week, that type of shit. Think of it this way. One insane beat or one crazy loop every single week is better than 10 kind of mediocre shitty ones. Know the basic business, marketing, sales, and channel strategy that it takes to be a successful producer. I need to go super in depth about this. There's tons of great content online that can teach you about this. Understand channel strategy. How can you get, your TikTok, your Instagram, your YouTube, and your Discord, and your email list all to work together? How can you network and add real value? Things like that. Have an abundance mindset. So let's say you're going on Instagram and you see another producer get a really big placement. Someone without an abundance mindset might look at that and get honestly, uncomfortable and insecure, and they'd say, why didn't I get that placement? Oh, it's so unfair. What did they do that I didn't? I'm putting in all this work. I never get placements, that type of shit. Someone with an abundance mindset will say, let's go. They're happy when their producer friend, gets a placement. The producer's part of my network. When they win, I win, because now I can, build on that and leverage their opportunities. Tons of rappers, there's tons of artists, there's tons of drum makers out there. There's always gonna be more opportunities for me to get placements. And if anything, seeing their friends get a placement motivates them to, get involved and get placements too. You have your whole life to get placements as a producer. If you have the mindset that okay, I need to get this many placements by the end of the year. I need to get my first big placement by the end of the year, or I'm quitting music. As having these really big goals is important, and it can, propel you towards them. End of the day, having a goal like that could really lead to burnout. And if you don't achieve it, you're gonna think all the work you put in was for nothing. If you have the mindset that I'm just gonna stay consistent with my work, always create good music, always send it out, and you're not so much worried about the final results, the results will come, trust me. For example, when I got my first Rod snippet, that was from a loop and beat that had been made, I wanna say a year and a half before that. When I got my first Scorey placement, that was from a beat that came out, 6 months earlier. When I got my YoungBoy placement. That was for a beat and loop that I made 3 months earlier. So there's always a delay from the work you're doing now to when you're actually gonna see the reward. So you need to focus on what's in your control. Sending every day, making good music. Don't worry about the results you're seeing now, because that's honestly from work you put in years ago, months ago. Know what a manager does and when you need one. I used to think that a manager was someone, for example, if I'm a loop maker or a beat maker, I could send my beats to them and loops to them, and they would kind of, send it out for opportunities. Really, that's what an A&R does. A manager doesn't do that. What a manager does is they're helping you with the business and payment side of things. If you get a placement, a manager will help you kind of reach out to that label or reach out to that artist, negotiate how much you're gonna get paid for that track. They can actually facilitate, like they get paid and then they'll send you the money direct. So you don't have to, create a vendor profile with this label. Having a manager is super important, but only if you really need one. If you're at the stage where you have no placements, you do not need a manager. A manager is only needed if you are getting a placement. And the way the manager does it is, for example, if the advance for a song is $3,000, they'll take a cut of that. So they'll take like 20%. If you see people come to you saying, yo, I'll manage you, and they give you a deal like, okay, it'll cost you $200 a month, or it'll cost you $1,000 for the year, chances are you're getting fucking scammed. Really the takeaway is like, are you getting placements? Are you getting paid? If you're not getting paid, get a manager. There's tons of great ones out there. If you're not getting placements, you do not need a manager. If you want to get more placements, build your networking. Networking always comes down to you as the producer. You want to find more ways to network? Find some A&Rs or people that can send direct to artists to grow your network and leverage them. Usually the way an A&R work is even though you're the one creating the loop or the beat, they'll take a cut of that because they're helping you get the placement. This goes back to so many of the tips and learnings I've already shared in this video, but at the end of the day, there's so much delayed gratification in music. If you're only focused on like a placement or a big sale, you're not going to enjoy any of the actual journey and hard work that leads to that. You're not going to get the results right away. Things are going to take months. Things are going to take years. So focus on actually enjoying creating music and being present. And a great way to do that is celebrate small wins. If you get a lab back from a big producer, you get a follow, you get a like, you get a new contact who you can reach out to. Those are all huge things that you should be celebrating and really enjoying. The last one is touch some fucking grass. You might be thinking as a producer that you need to sacrifice something in the present to get rewards in the future. I've been there. There was a time where I was losing sleep, not going to the gym, not hanging out with friends as much, and all of my goal is outside of my 9 to 5, I'm gonna spend as much time as I can possible working on beats. But it goes back to like, one, is that gonna be fun and is it sustainable? But two, I honestly don't think that's the best way and most effective way to go about it. In 2025, compared to previous years, I spent less time on my music. I spent more time in the gym. I spent time sleeping in and feeling all rested. I spent time, hanging out with friends, being healthy. And as a result, the music I actually created was really good, something I was proud of and enjoyed, and I developed the most. And I also got the most success this year. It's not a linear formula where the more time you spend on music, the better results you're gonna get, but just really think about like, is this sustainable? And is it leading to the best results? Or can taking a step back and actually spending more focused time on music, but less of it, lead to better results? All right, guys, I really hope you appreciated this video. I spent a lot of time trying to think of tips that are actually unique that are gonna get you guys thinking a little bit. If you are new to my channel and enjoy this, be sure to check out my other content, and I'd really appreciate it if you liked, comment, and subscribed. Best of luck to everybody producing in 2026. Peace.